time that we have left, we have a few fruit and vegetable questions. And so let's jump right in and start with those. We had a few on strawberries, so I think that'll be fun. It's been a while since we talked about strawberries, but this particular gardener says that they have ever-bearing strawberries that were planted earlier this year. They think they have a leaf issue, scorch, blotch. They're not sure. Is there anything that they can do to help those plants overwinter and be healthy for the spring, because they want to, have produce a crop of berries? And so what do we have any recommendations for our friends?
Yeah, Seth, let's talk about strawberries. So I know that we'll have some things to say. So I'm Natalie Baumgartner. I live and work in Knoxville, but have the opportunity to travel around. So when we think about strawberries, it is true that there are a range of leaf diseases. There's leaf spots that are kind of a complex of some different diseases. Anthracnose is also an issue on strawberries that we see both on, on stems, on leaves, on fruit. And so one of my questions that I, would pose back, for our gardener to consider is, have you seen fruit issues? And that would be good, in addition to, you can always do a test to, find out for sure what species that we're dealing with. But I say that about anthracnose because for those of us who may have slightly cooler roots, right? We kept our strawberries for years and years. We had matted row systems, that we manage. But as we get warmer and as we get more humid in this South and Mid-South climates, it becomes harder and harder to have many years of strawberry production. And anthracnose is one of those reasons. And so, it's one of the reasons why producers do, an annual strawberry system. So I'm not saying that there aren't control materials. There are, and knowing exactly, what disease you have will be important. And you can implement a spray schedule. Right at this moment, Seth is putting the link in for PB 1622. I could just tell telepathically that he's going to do that. And it will have all the recommendations for disease control. But from a horticulturist, from a cultural perspective, what I'm thinking is you might want to consider, if anthracnose is something that I'm going to be fighting for a while, maybe some other options. And I also want to consider some June bearing or some short day strawberries, because we tend to see a little bit higher yield out of that. So I've talked for a while. I'm going to be quiet and let Seth jump in on that.
Yeah, and you hit that point. I'm a bigger fan of June bearing strawberries, just in the fact that we can renovate them, right? So that's just the process of renewing and promoting healthy growth and removing that maybe diseased or older runners that we might have in the bed. And then I know one also cultural practice, we can always say, look at PB 1622 for recommended fungicides, and of course use your soil and plant pest diagnostics lab there to identify exactly which whether it's a bacterial disease and which product to use or whatnot. But just increasing air circulation. A lot of times I'll visit gardens and I'll see just a bed of strawberries, and you can't even see your hand when you put it in the bed there because it's so thick of these strawberry leaves. And so just think about air circulation and allowing that free movement of air within our beds, and that'll hopefully speed up the leaf for drying, and that less inoculum of that wet leafy material that a disease could potentially develop on. And then one thing I wish that we could know about this question too is, how old are those ever-bearing strawberries? So once we get to 2 or 3 years out of production with that strawberry, we really start to drop our yields here, and we got to consider maybe completely removing that strawberry bed there. So yeah, I think that hits it pretty well on strawberries.
Yeah, and if you decide to just replant, then rotating our fruit, especially strawberry, like we don't want to technically go right back in of strawberry after strawberry. So it might be a good time to build yourself a new raised bed for some additional strawberries and put in some cool season crops or something that is different. We also don't want, tomatoes and peppers and some of those crops to immediately follow, strawberries if we can help it. So, maybe some good construction time.
Excellent point. Yeah. And Celeste, I think if I could, that kind of transitions me into more about planting berries. I got this question from Coffee County,
Yeah.
actually. She says that they're new to planting berries, and that includes raspberries, blueberries, strawberries. And they've been using this one fertilizer, and they didn't get much production out of it. And keep in mind, it was her first planting this past spring, and she didn't get much production about it. And she's wondering if there's maybe something better to use. And this really brings up like 3 different points for me real quick. And a lot of times we always think of it's got to be fertilizing, right? That's the only way we can increase our fruit production. But I also want you all to think about the biology of these plants. Generally speaking, blueberries, we actually don't really want to force berry production after that first year of planting. We want to push that back 3 to 4 years, and actually remove those buds, or excuse me, those flowers from becoming berries, so that the plant can push more resources into their roots. So that's one thing, is maybe we don't want those berries those first few years. Number 2, that include caneberries. So if we know what type of caneberries we're working with, whether raspberries, blackberries, we always need to know if it's a fluorocane producing berry or a primocane producing berry. And so it would be normal as a fluorocane producing berry that fruit production is only going to occur on the second year's growth of that cane. So when we think about, hey, there's no berry production, what can I do for fertilizing this? It's actually normal, right? So we need to wait for that second year and understand the biology of that plant. So that's just a little tad bit I wanted to throw in there as well. But when we're thinking about, fertilization, and the original question was, what is the recommended time? And it's just not a one size fits all. I know we always preach using that soil lab and putting our soil test in there. And I just pulled an example from my own yard, actually, where I had these 3 exact crops. So it gives me exactly which products to use and the timing of it. So I'm just looking at my example report here. Generally speaking, raspberries need to be fertilized each year when those first blooms appear, right? Strawberries, generally speaking, in March and in August. And then for blueberries each spring. And it'll give me recommendations on the level of pounds per product that we could put into those fruit production. So I'll stop talking. I think I kind of hit multiple points there.
Yeah. I mean, that's an awesome, because I think that, you have a lot of site selection, you have site preparation, and then you have management that all comes into play in that question. And whether we're talking about caneberries versus blueberries, right? They require a different pH. So, our caneberries, our strawberries are going to be more of a slightly below neutral pH, kind of that 6.5 range, where our blueberries, our ideal range is going to be more that high 4s to mid 5s. And so our pH range is going to be different. And blueberries especially are kind of a low nutrient needing crop. So it is almost more common for people to over fertilize their blueberries than it is to under fertilize. And Seth's point about early, removing of those blooms to try to, allow them to invest more of their energy into plant structure is very important. And most of the time, what we're going to be doing with our blueberries is kind of a first fertilization right around bud break, and then about a month, and then about a month. And we don't want to be fertilizing in August or September or October. We'll really try to get that fertilization done while they're bearing this year's crop, and in that mid to late part of the summer, while they are building up their reserves, which will support next year's crop. But honestly, for first year blueberries, lots of times we won't even fertilize very much. It'll be in that second and third and fourth and fifth year. So lots of great information about that.
That's a good kind of lead in to this third and final question in this fruit veggie section. It also has to do with blueberries. And I think we're going to be still in this fertilization nutrition range. They have a number of blueberries that they've been growing for a few years. One in particular, Brightwell, is not doing as well as the others. It has a very yellowy kind of like olive green foliage color. This picture was actually taken in mid-September. So, I mean, it's been a while since this question was sent in, but I'm going to share that picture. And do we have any thoughts that we might want to share with her on, why is this one doing weird stuff and the other ones look good. You can see how dark the foliage is of the plant. I'm assuming that's the plant right next to it, kind of branching over into it. Do you think plants that close together could be showing new nutrient or pH related symptoms while the other ones are fine?
If this question had talked about amendments that had been made, which, sounded very good, incorporation of composted pine bark and things like that. But I would be thinking about, are there any potential discontinuities in that soil, or could these plants have different root experiences? I don't know, Seth or Lee, is that kind of what you think as you look at the
Yeah.
images?
Reddish leaves is what I kind of see on those margins there. And the timing of this was in, September-ish, October-ish. But that's generally normal for the younger leaves to display a reddening for blueberries. And sometimes that can be a general symptom of environmental distress, or just cool weather kind of moving in. So I kind of saw this as a reddening thing. But I also, if you look at the structure of this blueberry plant right here, that is not what we want. If this is a bright well, that's a rabbit eye blueberry. And so we want upright, almost crepe myrtle vase-like structure here, right? So with it drooping over, you can see those younger leaves that are on the bottom there that Celeste had zoomed in on us. We need to think about a cane renewal program here and really shaping up this blueberry to the form that we need it to be. And so when we think about Brightwell and rabbit eye cane renewals, we're removing maybe 1 to 3 of the largest canes from that blueberry. So over a period of 5 years, that blueberry is going to completely have different new canes, right? Let's start managing and pruning this blueberry.
I was just going to throw in that we've got some videos on pruning and other information for blueberries. If you wanted to go to our YouTube channel, it's UT Hort. So just look us up there, and we've got things kind of organized in these really nice playlists. So you can go to the ones for fruits, and then they're separated out by type of fruit. And so you could kind of take a look at some of that to kind of get you heading in the right direction with some renewal and things like that. Just for some added information. Okay, well, I think that's all the time that we have time for today as far as questions go. Well, see you later, y'all.